Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to episode 16 of Might Help, Can't Hurt. Episodes with leaders, doers, and friends. And my leader, doer friend today is Dr. Peter Fenner. Welcome, Peter.
Hi, Michael.
And I was trying to remember when I first did your Radiant Mind course. And I was thinking 2006 or 7 in Berkeley.
Yeah, 2006. Yeah.
And I don't know that you'd remember this story, but so I'd been reading Peter. I don't know if your website is still this content rich, but you used to be able to go on Peter's website. I think it was the radiantmind.net and just read tons of articles. And I'd printed them all off and just read all these articles on non-duality and non-meditation and meeting East and West. And I found it fascinating. And I booked on the course. And I remember going up, and I'd never spoken to you. And the night before, we had a call scheduled, just like a touching base call. And I was in a bookshop in Berkeley. And I was in the spiritual section, like looking for stuff. And I suddenly fell into a place of complete stillness. And I was like doing this. And then my phone went and it was you. And I was like, that's interesting. And so and for years, I had the radio show. And I always wanted to have you on as a guest, but I was afraid that we'd get so quiet that it would make for terrible radio.
Right. A conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
So, at least this way, if it goes quiet, people will know we're still here.
Yeah.
But how, I mean, I'm not going to really ask you to do 16 years or however long it's been in 3 minutes, but broad brushstrokes, when did you go back to Australia?
I went back to Australia 7 years ago.
Okay.
Primarily for medical treatment of various sorts.
Right.
As an Australian, and in a way more confident with the Australian medical system, and 2 knee operations, back surgery. I've got a lot of metal in my body now.
Yeah. Do you set off the airport thing? Nina's got a lot of metal in her leg.
Yeah.
She was really bummed she didn't set off the detector.
Yeah.
No, how is COVID over there?
Where we are right now, where I am, Canberra, you barely notice it because we've had 0 cases for the last 3 weeks. Melbourne, something is happening in the last week.
Right.
I was very lucky to get there for my mother's 96th birthday a week ago because borders are closing down.
Gosh.
Yeah.
I suppose that's the plus of an island is you can.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah. I mean, you're not allowed to leave the country. Only Australians can come here. So it's pretty locked off at the moment.
Right. And the first of what will probably be a series of stupid and uneducated questions. Who's the statue behind you?
Oh, wow. The statue is a little bit of a story about it because the first time I saw it, I sort of had to look twice because it's my guru, Lama Tupten Yeshe, who died in 1984 when he was 49. So it's a bit unusual to have a statue of a contemporary teacher, of one that you can recognize the face, which I can. It's been, beautifully, delicately molded. So that's my guru, who I met in 1974 in Melbourne, who changed my life as he changed the lives of thousands of Westerners.
Right. And you so did you become a monk before you were a professor? Or was it the other way?
En route, in my training, while I was doing my MA.
Right.
So doing my MA PhD, but during my MA I went to India. I sort of negotiated it with Lama Yeshe, went to his main monastery in Kopan in Kathmandu, then to a monastery in the south of India. One of the relocated Tibetan monasteries, became ordained as a monk there.
Right. It's funny. There's a bunch of questions racing for possession of my mouth. One of the things I was really looking forward to talking to you about is how you see the sort of, and I noticed you call it Asian non-duality. Now I don't remember what
Yes, I mean,
do you have a preferred
what I call it now, because most of the people I work with now have been with me for a long time, 10, 15, 20 or more years. I can get away with calling it this.
Right.
This.
Right.
The this where I'm not pointing in any direction, or inside or outside. So now it's got down to shorthand. My latest course is called Dancing in This.
Right.
And people know when they enroll, they know what this is. Yeah. It's this that we can't think about, can't point to, etc. The this that's here right now. So that makes it simple. But yes, not Asian non-duality, because it's not cultural. Because this awareness itself has no structure. It has not associated specifically with a culture, gender, biology, historical epoch, and so on.
This is what I sort of remember just amusing me when I was first trying to get my head around what you were pointing to. I think you refer to it a lot as unconditioned awareness when I was working with you.
Yes.
But that essentially you were very deliberately pointing to nothing.
Yes, that's it. That's, the pointing to, the recognition of this as no thing. It's not a thing because it's not the object of the objects of our experience. It's not an object of experience. Experience awareness itself. You could say that which is taking everything in, which is a clearing the space in which everything arises. And intriguingly, there's no difference. I mean, we can observe this with seeing, but we're looking out, and sort of at the other end of our vision are the objects, the senses, colors, shapes, forms, me looking at you. What is receiving that? What is that receiving that? Where is that being received? Being directly, not dropping away the ideas, the images that we have from biology textbooks, etc. But here, directly, where does it go? Where does it land? Where does it happen? Like at this end, at the outside, there are things, but where it lands in an unconditioned space. And this, for me, beautifully, with vision, is what's sometimes called the co-arising of appearances and the vastness, infinity, the finite and the infinite. Because, in here, there's no center, no place that it arrives at.
It's been a while since we've spoken. I'd forgotten. So for anyone else whose head is spinning, I remember somebody on our program who was very concerned with happiness. And you said, and I don't want to take this out of context or blow it into something that it wasn't, but what I remember you saying was that you weren't really concerned with happiness. And he was very, very surprised because he thought he was coming on a program to help him be happier.
Yes.
And so I guess the the question that's coming to mind is sort of, so what is the point of this conversation about this, about nothing, about
essentially, everyone's looking for a reliable source of contentment. In Buddhism, they talk about refuge. What do we take refuge in? What's trustworthy? What's reliable? What doesn't come and go? What isn't conditioned by our whims, our preferences that change all the time? So let's take happiness. What I'm saying there is that the way to be happy is by not giving it specific attention, but by discovering a space within us that has nothing to do with happiness or suffering, that really does transcend these. That when we're here in this space of pure awareness, contentless awareness, with everything happening, if I pose the question, am I happy now? Yeah, in a sense, of course, yes, yeah. I am happy now. But is this happiness, the pure state of contentless awareness? No, it's not, because it's not conditioned. This doesn't come and go. Is then, more strangely, is this then, so there's another way to look at it. Am I suffering now in this? No, there is no suffering. Am I free of suffering? This one gets a little bit strange in the non-dual. Am I free of suffering? Don't know what I'm free of. It really is unconditioned. A state of freedom in this way is, it's not conditioned by anything. So whatever comes along, it's not perturbing, it's not disturbing. Let's say the stillness, but it's the stillness that allows movement to happen. It's not like a frozen state at all. It's dynamic, still and dynamic at the same time.
So just to really go all the way back up to defining terms, when you talk about non-dual, so I understand there's a vast traditions, but what makes that, or what has made that a good description of this conversation?
Because in a way, when we enter this as non-dual awareness, we're no longer playing in or being played by the dualistic mind, the mind that's comparing, the mind which is happening continually. The stream of consciousness that we experience, stream of thought, cognition, it's built on duality, comparisons. I like this, I don't like that. That's a fundamental duality. I'm getting it, I'm not getting it. I'm confused, I'm not clear. Happiness and suffering. So the dualistic mind, in a way, keeps us dissatisfied because we're comparing better and worse. I need more. This is not enough. They're all comparisons. I've got enough, I have not got enough. I'm happy, I am not happy. So it's that mind that is making those comparisons that's producing, for a lot of our life, a sense of lack, inadequacy, not enough. I need more. It needs to be different in some way. This is not it. That things shouldn't be how they are. So, in this work, what we're doing is seeing, yes, the dualistic mind, my mind that is built on the creation of preferences, what I want, what I don't want, that's the problem. But wow, there is something else happening. It's the awareness of all of this. This is also here in a different way. It's not in a particular place for a start. Awareness. And then, so first there's the recognition of awareness. Okay, it's not the things that are happening, but it's the awareness itself. Awareness, this intriguing thing that we can't point at. We can't even think about it because there's nothing there to think about. Going back to what you were saying, it's a non-thing. It's nothing. Not a thing to think about. We can use simple words like this, awareness, presence, spirit, different words used to point to it. So then it's, wow, there is something here. There's nothing, it's here already. There's no work involved in discovering this. It's just here, invisible in some way. That's why it can be difficult to access this. We're always looking for things.
Yeah.
It's invisible here. And if, in a way, if this is where we go, if this is where we are, we're beyond right and wrong. Whatever our condition is, a lot of the time, my companion is pain from different, things, knees, back. I'm just a couple of months out of lumbar surgery. So that's still sort of moving through me. But I can be here with those sensations happening. It's totally fine. There is no, I'm not punishing myself, but there's no impulse to change anything because I can't think of any reason. This is self-fulfilling.
So there
in and of itself.
There was a phrase that you used, and I don't know if you used it once or all the time, but it stuck with me, and it's a phrase that I use in my teaching, which was having neither a preference for speech nor silence. That one I just got. But when I try to extrapolate that from having neither a preference for suffering or not suffering, having neither a preference, and I'm gonna go all the way, like having neither a preference for people being murdered in the streets or not murdered in the streets, having neither a preference for family members being ravaged by disease or not ravaged by disease. That one feels harder.
Yes, because there is work for us to do at what I call the conditioned level. Because when things are significantly outside of our preferences, we're just caught up in them.
Right.
Talk about awareness, it's just irrelevant to where we are. When we are in real pain, emotionally disturbed, our values are being really assaulted, we're confronted by what's happening in the world, that can be difficult to just come into a more meditative, reflective state and begin to be with what is. So yes, we need to take care of how things are in the conditioned world. So in my case, operations. So in order to make the changes in which things sort of come into the orbit, there's a rough approximation to our preferences. We can relax a little bit. And then, what else is happening here? Awareness. And then begin to become more and more familiar with awareness. And then it's as though the tolerance for what our tolerances increase. Things that previously, when they fell outside our preferences, would be agitated. So with some training, with some practice, people can annoy us, and that's in the same way, and that's fine. It's just, it's flat for us.
Right. So, and as with all my questions, I'm sure I'm going to be revealing equal parts ignorance and interest, but I've always understood that one of the core tenets of Buddhism is the alleviation of suffering.
Yes.
So doesn't that almost inherently suggest that suffering bad, not suffering good?
No.
No.
No,
Okay.
no, not at all.
Oh, good, because I was in danger of understanding this too early.
No, thinking that suffering shouldn't happen. I mean, that's a major cause of suffering.
I just want to say that out loud myself. Thinking suffering shouldn't happen is a major cause of suffering. Actually, that doesn't make sense. I think I find that to be true.
That's the battle that we're in each day. That we're fighting because we think what's happening, which we experience, take in as suffering, shouldn't happen, and we're fighting. We're in a battle or a strategy to try to remove that. Yes. But it's not about, it's about going beyond pleasure and pain, which doesn't mean that they're not coming into our experience. But it means having access to the unconditioned, which is beyond suffering, and also beyond the absence of suffering. It means what happens is people often interpret pure awareness as a state of happiness, fulfillment, bliss, contentment. It's not what it is. They're the things that can come along in the slipstream of pure awareness. They come along, they're beautiful, they're lovely, they're delightful. Bliss, superb. I mean, a really healing energy, heals our nervous system. Joy, ecstasy. But they're not it. They come along. If we make them the focus of our attention, we start to miss them. I've got it, I haven't got it, I had it, I lost it, what do I have to do to get it back again? So we're saying, okay, so we just go for awareness. And this has nothing to do with happiness or suffering. It really is transcendent wisdom, wisdom of transcendent that is immanent and present in our lives. Initially, if we've got good conditions, we can have that, taste that for some time, rest in it for some minutes, and then slowly it can deepen. Not like immediately, quickly, but when students say to me, so, when am I going to get the full thing, just be free of suffering, like the Buddha? I say, slow down. Very doubtful, actually. very doubtful that that will happen in this life. So put that to the side.
Yeah.
Just be satisfied if after 10 years of significant application, which means really just finding where this type of work can happen and being there, reading, going to workshops, however that happens.
Yeah.
And then there's some change, some development, a maturation in our capacity, more tolerance for difficult experiences. We're a little less judgmental. We can rest here for some time. That's wonderful. After 5 years, we can notice some difference. And after 10 years, a little bit more. And people expect a little bit too much, I think.
Well, I remember a conversation, and I wouldn't swear on a Bible this was you, but I think of it as a conversation you and I had, where I had watched the Ken Wilber video, where he was into a deep state of meditation on a brain machine. It shows that he's in delta brainwave, but he's still aware and answering questions.
Yes.
And I said, well, that would be, where I'd like to be. And my memory is you saying, well, Michael, one of these lifetimes, I'm sure that will happen for you.
Maybe, perhaps. Yeah. But the thing is, it's not difficult, this initial recognition, which is, I do it now with the word this. That's what we are talking about. Now, the focus of our conversation, it is this. What's happening right now? When I say this, I'm pointing to something in a way very precise, but you can't say where it is. It's not out, it's not there, it's not sensory. It's not related with our thought. It's the very fact that, in a way, experience is happening at all. It's what makes this experience possible.
So is there a goal to this?
Yeah, this.
So the goal of this is this.
The goal of this is this.
Right. Of course it is.
Yeah, there's nothing more than this. See, the other wonderful thing about this is, when we're here, if we ask the question, can I improve this? Can I make it better, more pure, more intense, more real? No, because there's nothing here that we are presencing that we can enhance. Can I diminish this? No, no structure to it. No fabric, no structure. Beyond enhancement and diminishment, that's the non-dual. That's how we check it out, that it is the non-dual, this that we're presencing. Michael, can we enhance this?
I wouldn't know how to.
Yeah, that's it. We can't get our hands on it to do it. It's transcendent, but so present. Can we push this aside? Can we just stop it?
No.
No, we can't stop it. There's nothing to stop. These are the characteristics of the non-dual.
So one of the debates in my field is around the notion of free will.
Yeah.
And there are very strong free willers and no free willers. And what does that look like to you besides silliness, which it looks like to me? But what is your understanding of your take on your experience of free will?
Well, I think it comes back in teaching people, in workshops, it comes back to choice often. I can choose, I have choice, I am choosing, I'm not choosing. For me, the fact that I think I choose doesn't mean a lot, because that's just a thought. I am choosing. I am choosing. So I can think, I am choosing to be experiencing this moment, or I am not. I don't see it's making that much difference. I mean, the sentences, for a start, one's just got a not in it. That seems to make a lot of difference to people, right?
Yeah.
I'm free. I'm not free. You put the negation in it, and I don't know what, suddenly you're meant to contract or not feel as free or whatever. It's a difference in thinking. If you try and find what's behind it, it's a bit like the self. You know, when we look for ourselves, it's not easy to find the self, the experiencer. We can easily find what we're experiencing, experiencing sensations, ideas, other people. But to experience the self, what do we find? We can't find the experiencer. If we could, the experiencer would become an object rather than the subject.
Right.
So similarly, when we try to find choice, or for that matter, an absence of choice in our thought stream or wherever it's happening, wherever choice is actually meant to be happening, like the choice point people talk about. There's a choice point happening. Now we're at a choice point. You try to find, where is that choice? What is it happening in? It's a little bit like thoughts. Is the choice meant to be happening in our thinking? Wow, thoughts are pretty ephemeral. To find a thought, what are thoughts made out of? Where do they come from? Where do they go? Where is the choice in that?
So for me, where it seemed personally relevant as a question, because a lot of it is just a philosophical debate, you know, much ado about nothing, but there is an experience I have had numerous times of feeling what I would just describe as heaviness. And I have had the experience multiple times of noticing that I'm experiencing heaviness.
Yeah.
And then the heaviness lifting.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how it is. That's how it is. I'm going back to the originator of one of the very important non-dual traditions called Dzogchen, and a great saint, Gadab Dorji. He said, yes, first there's recognition. So, and the recognition is doing it again and again and again, hundreds, thousands of times, recognizing this, yes, this. And then sort of developing confidence in this, that there is an opening, a freedom in some way. I'm saying going beyond freedom and bondage, but in some way there's a freedom in this. And then gradually being able to rest here, stay here more and more, which essentially means not being distracted from this. There's nothing to be distracted from, but we are continually distracted by life. Within a minute, I will be distracted from this. As soon as we stop the conversation, there'll be something I need to do, and I will be distracted. I won't be able to find my stevia for my tea or something or other, and I'll be distracted. So it's coming back to this and recognize, I was distracted. No problem. I was distracted for a day.
Yeah.
So people can be distracted for some weeks. Maybe when you're used to it, not so much. Not a problem. You go, oh, I got distracted. Wow, I forgot all about this. Ah, but this is here. And this is really what it's about, and working at not being distracted.
There's a phrase that you used when we were together that stuck with me, and it was undistracted non-meditation.
Yes. Yes.
And I wondered if you could speak to that, because that was profound for me. That there was something in that freed me up from a lot of ideas I had. I don't know if I could even explain it, but I'd love it if you would speak to that.
Yeah. Well, I think the non-meditation is that this is being given to us. It's a mystery. Could even think it's a blessing, the recognition of this. But when we're here, no practice is needed. And we're experiencing the fruits of meditation, meaning we're, in a way, at the end of the path. It's not an end, but there's no more searching. Nowhere further for us to go. Yeah. So nothing we have to do. So we've accomplished the intention of any and all forms of meditation, practice. It's done. It doesn't say we don't need to practice or don't practice. We don't need to. It doesn't say that we may not do a form. People do forms within this state, not because they need to, but because it's part of their conditioning. They're used to doing it.
I remember the practice that again, I'm just going to say that I remember that when we were working together was, I think you called just sitting.
Yeah.
And I remember finding it so odd to just sit.
Right.
Because I wanted to do something while I sat. I wanted to meditate or focus on something or.
Right. Well, I think the instruction was you just to do whatever is happening.
Well, so I remember the one that I remember most because we did a number of coaching sessions together, and there was one time where I was in my car. I wasn't driving, but I was in my car. We were talking, and I was getting frustrated at the fact that I understood about every 50th word that you said, and you said something about along those lines of, well, just do whatever's happening.
Yeah.
Well, if I was doing whatever's happening, I would be reading the comics right now. And you said,
yeah, but impossible. It can't do two things at the same time. No, so we do what we're doing, what is happening, being where we are. But yeah, Michael, we haven't really got into the speech and silence, not preferencing either.
Oh yeah, no, please.
Yeah.
I'd love you to expound.
Well, no, I can't expound on that. How? You mean talk about rather than do? And this is about doing. Yeah, this is about just, equally just enjoying the the not needing to interpret, enjoying the not going anywhere with our mind, not knowing. Yeah, just feeling that. Yeah, bringing this in as well. Yeah, just like this. Yeah, just this, because then it's here that I think we get the simplicity of this. Utter, total simplicity. The sense of nothing that we need to do. And a feeling of, wow, how wonderful that in the stream of our busy lives, we can come to the point where nothing at all, we are not asking anything from ourselves. And the world outside, for some reason, isn't asking anything from us either. That's really is beautiful.
And assumedly, it isn't dependent on anything.
It is?
Assumedly, it isn't dependent on anything.
No.
Like, there isn't a circumstance in which there are demands on us, or are there? Like,
Oh, well, again, the outside circumstances need to come together in a particular way for this to happen, to be able to just be here, rest here. And so when you construct a workshop, that's part of what you're doing. You're creating a space and people are coming there, having a break, even coming on Zoom calls, doing things virtually. People are taking a break, so then it's taking advantage of that break and just resting into the moment. Yeah.
So if somebody has been listening to this, and I'm going to just use the phrase, has heard something, what would you suggest as a next step?
If it's for some people, the recognition will have already happened. So I might be framing it, talking about it in a slightly different way. But they'll be saying, yeah, I know what this is. Yeah. And they may already know about places, teachers, teachings that they can go to where this can happen. On YouTube, they'll know the sources that support them in cultivating this, or they'll know some of the literature. I mean, I have books that I can go to and I can spend an afternoon going to the teachings of different saints, and they just, in their beautiful poetic language, you read a line and then you just move into this and you just enjoy it and savor it for minutes, and then you go on to another line. It's delightful. If this is the first time that people have heard the type of language that's pointing to this, to the moment, to awareness itself, just doing an exploration on the places where this can happen, the communities where this can happen. I mean, when a group of people who resonate with this come together, a lot of things happen automatically. In the things I run, people come online, they say, hi, how are you? A little bit of introduction. Then often they will just fall into silence for 10, 15 minutes. Naturally they're not meditating. They all know what can happen when they come together. And then, after 15 minutes of silence, then movement starts to happen. People know there's nothing to interrupt.
Mm.
We're not meditating. It's what you said about non-meditation, uninterrupted non-meditation. They know that it can't be interrupted. So anyone can talk at any time. Anyone can share from their personal experience. There's no energy restriction, no principle, rule restricting that. So then after some time, yes, someone shares, hey, just wanting to share, something's been happening for me in this last week. That's been challenging. And then they'll talk about that, and then we integrate that, we bring that into the space, and somehow let it dissolve, or be dissolve and be reframed in their thinking at the same time. So then they hold it differently.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to have to bring us to a close, but I want to take the opportunity, because I don't know if I ever have. I hope I have, but to thank you, because the time we spent together it really was an introduction to something that's become my life. And I have very different ways of talking about it, and probably, but within my own limited scope and understanding, it has been profound for me. So I just want to publicly acknowledge and thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Michael. Yeah, I know that. I mean, when you share that, yeah, you do recognize this throughout the days and in midst of what you're doing. That touches my heart. I know that. I know it from your work. I see it expressed in your work, in your own words, using your own language again and again.
Yeah.
And thrilled, and brings me joy knowing the many, many people who are touched by this through you.
Beautiful. Well, if anyone is not completely baffled, good for you. And if you are, you might enjoy, I certainly enjoyed Peter's books and teachings and works. Peter, thank you so much for taking the time.
A pleasure. Great pleasure. Great. Thanks, Michael.
Bye.
Bye.